everybody, and welcome to today's video. I said today it's kind of late. And in today's video, I will be doing a 2024 election prediction between Andrew Yang and Ron DeSantis. Now this video will probably be pretty short. It's kind of late, and I want to get to bed before midnight. Also, like, my entire family is asleep, so I'm trying to not wake them up. So I'm gonna be kind of quiet. I'm going to start by labeling all of Yang's safe states: Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine's first, and Illinois. None of these should come as surprises. I believe they were all safe in 2020. For DeSantis' safe states: Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Nebraska's at-large first and third congressional districts, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Now, for Yang's likely states, I'm going to give him Colorado, New Mexico, New York was safe, by the way, Maine, Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia. So, for these, New Mexico and Colorado both were likely in 2020. Both have pretty large Hispanic and Latino votes. And Yang, among minority voters, he's pretty average. While DeSantis, I would say, is pretty strong with the Hispanic and Latino vote, which makes up a pretty large chunk of the electorate in both of these states. So I just think that DeSantis would do well with those voters and probably keep them likely. Sorry, I just got a notification. There's a little thing right there. In Minnesota, DeSantis, I think that Yang is really, really strong with the white working class, while DeSantis is strong, but not as strong as Trump would have been. So I think that Yang would do similarly, to Biden he would do similar to Biden in urban areas, 1 to 2% worse than Biden in the suburbs, but then overperform him with the working class, and a lot of this working class up here in the Iron Range. Michigan, it's another similar thing. He'd do better. I think that he would do better in Detroit because it's kind of like a working class city, but I also think he'd do better. I think he'd do better all around, all across the board with the white rural vote. I think that DeSantis would do narrowly better with the suburban vote, and then the urban vote would be the same. Maine, I think that he's just good with the white rural vote once again, so I think that would be likely. Virginia, he's going to be pretty strong in the D.C. suburbs, similarly to Biden. I guess in rural areas in the South, he may not do as well, but I still think he'd do pretty well. For DeSantis' likely states, I'm going to give him Montana, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. So in Montana, I think that I was debating whether or not to put this into the safe or likely column. I decided to put it likely just because Yang is really good at the white rural vote. It is more of a moderate bipartisan state, so it could vote for DeSantis by a safe margin, as he is probably more traditional, or at least has a more, I guess, level-headed approach. He's like Trump, except for he has a more level-headed, I guess, traditional Romney-McCain approach to it than Trump did. So that could be one thing, but Yang is just so strong with the white rural vote. Kansas, it's a similar thing. It was likely in 2020. I think that over here, DeSantis would actually underperform with the white rural vote. So in Yang would do really well with them. Missouri, same thing. He'd do really well. Yang would do really well with the white rural farmers. Indiana, he'd do really well with the white working class. Once again, suburbs would probably shift a tiny bit, or DeSantis would probably do better than Trump would. I think they would probably still shift to the left just because they're shifting. Probably not by as much, though, but on DeSantis and Trump on the same ballot, DeSantis would probably narrowly overperform Trump. South Carolina, it was likely in 2020, shifting to the left. DeSantis won't be able to do well enough. I think that the black vote, Yang would be pretty average for, and DeSantis isn't a phenomenal candidate for the black vote. He's really good with the, he might be alright, but he was particularly good with the Hispanic and Latino vote in 2018. But I don't really think it would have much of an impact on South Carolina. And in Alaska, it was likely in 2020. DeSantis could do pretty well with oil workers. I feel like Yang could as well. But with a lot of these newer voters, Yang would definitely do better with them. A lot of Native American new voters, which Yang would do very well with. For Yang's lean states, I'm gonna give him Nebraska second, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire. So looking at this in Wisconsin, I think that he's once again good with the white working class. He's gonna be an average Democrat, like similarly to Hillary Clinton. So good, yes, not like just like eh. Most Democrats are good with the black vote, so he would be pretty good with the black vote. Did pretty well in Milwaukee, Madison. He did pretty well all across the state, and do really well with the white working class in the third congressional district, which I think would be an upside for him. In Pennsylvania, once again, he did pretty well in Philly. He did pretty well in Pittsburgh, which is a working class city. I also think he'd do pretty well with the white rural vote with a lot of oil workers, especially workers in fossil fuel industries. That he would want to transition into um more efficient, I guess. Um, or things that he would campaign for and say that they're better for the environment and that they're growing industries. Because I mean, like I guess they honestly they are growing industries, and I think that Yang, if he were to use it to his advantage, could do really well. In New Hampshire, I was debating whether or not to put this in the likely or lean column. DeSantis is for Republican. He's pretty good at the white rural college educated vote. But I also think that Yang, just in general, is good with the white rural vote. So it could be lean, could be likely. I just gave it to DeSantis or to Yang lean. And in Nebraska second, Biden won it by a likely margin, but I think that DeSantis would do slightly better in the suburbs. It would be on like the line between being lean or likely. It really just depends on DeSantis' strength in the suburbs. Because Yang would be pretty average in the urban areas. He may do slightly better than Biden, just because Biden wasn't great in urban areas. For DeSantis' lean states, Texas, for Florida likely, Iowa, Ohio, Maine second, and that is it. So for Florida being likely, like he's from there, he's really good for the state. He's really he's not as popular anymore, but he was really popular there. He's still popular. And he's looking like he's gonna win by a lot in Texas. I think that Yang, I mean, like it's shifting to the left. The suburbs are gonna continue to shift. Yang would do pretty well in the urban areas. He'd do pretty bad, I think, with Hispanic and Latino voters. Well, I don't know because Biden was also really bad for them, but I think that DeSantis is really good for them. He'd do probably DeSantis, I don't know, or Yang would probably do, I don't know, probably pretty decent in the white rural Texas, similar to Beto O'Rourke. In Iowa and Ohio, I think that I think that Yang would be really good, in like this, I think, first congressional district. This general little area, it's kind of funny. A lot of it was actually used to be blue. Um, in this little part of like the Midwest Rust Belt, this area. But regardless, I think this is the first congressional district in like this little area. I think that Yang would do really well over there, and he would do similar or not similarly to Obama, but he would come closer to Obama's performance there and do better with the white rural vote. Same thing in Ohio. I think he'd do probably pretty similarly in Cleveland, maybe a little bit better. Same thing. I mean, Cleveland seems to be. I think he would do pretty well in these areas. Um, but he would do really well with the white working class vote. But DeSantis is Trumpist, and he has enough Trumpist appeal less than Trump, obviously, and less working class appeal than Trump. But he has the appeal, which is what really matters. Yang does as well, but I think that against DeSantis, it's just gonna be too much. Maine second. DeSantis is strong with the white rural vote there. I think that Yang would also be really strong, but I think DeSantis is also very strong. So it comes down to tilt states as usual. So I'm gonna go started by labeling Yang's tilt states. As you can see, I have Yang winning Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia for Yang. So in Nevada, I mean, like I don't really see any areas where I see areas where he's an average candidate, which is at times good. But I don't see any areas where he's really good. Other than the white working class, which means the working class, and they make up. I mean, like Nevada, I guess it has a working class presence, but it's not gonna be the same thing as in Michigan or something. But DeSantis would do better with the Hispanic and Latino vote, and probably nearly better in the suburbs, or at least nearly better than Trump would on the same ballot. So I'm gonna have to give it to Yang just by a tilt margin. In Arizona, similar thing. He's just better with Hispanic and Latino voters, which I think is why he would only carry, which is why Yang would only carry it by a tilt margin, because DeSantis would be too strong with Hispanic and Latino vote. But I do think that Yang would do pretty well in the suburbs and do decent with the white rural vote. It's also shifting to the left. In Georgia, Yang, I think that the white rural turnout would be down slightly, and Yang could do. I could see him doing slightly better. I think that the white rural vote in the South is a lot different to the white rural vote in, say, Missouri, or which is also different to the white rural vote in like Wisconsin or areas of Wisconsin. I mean, like, I guess there's still a bunch of farmland, but like white working class voters, which is different to the white working class, or to the white rural vote in New Hampshire. So we're seeing a lot of different white rural vote. So I think that he wouldn't really be phenomenal for this vote, but I think that he would also do pretty well in Atlanta and its suburbs and keep it tilt blue. So for DeSantis's one tilt state, it's just in North Carolina. Now, I was really debating whether or not I should give this to DeSantis or Yang, or not really debating, was kind of debating, I guess. Because in the state of North Carolina, I mean, like, Yang is strong with the working class, in North Carolina, and he's strong in Charlotte, and he'd be decent in the suburbs. But then again, I don't necessarily know that he'd be able to do amazingly in the suburbs. I mean, like, DeSantis is, I've discussed his strength in the suburbs so much by now. You may be getting sick of hearing me you may be getting sick of hearing me talk about DeSantis in the suburbs. But I don't think that he's a phenomenal candidate. But I do think it does have this right-leaning bias, so it really could be tilt blue, just because Yang is really good at the working class. But I think that DeSantis is also really good. So I'm just gonna give that to DeSantis. I mean, like, I've been critical of his strength as a candidate and his strength in the suburbs. So I am just gonna give it to him. Because I don't want to underestimate DeSantis. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. I may be making, stop labeling Nebraska red, or blue. I may be making, I had an idea for a video. I was considering making a Marco Rubio AOC prediction, so I may do that. I'm working on a midterms election. I have a lot of election nights that I'm like halfway through, working on. So I do have a lot of these things that I'm working on, so hopefully some of them will be out eventually. But yeah, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.